There comes a stage along this path where a man's life looks like freedom from the outside, but feels like suffocation from the inside. From the outside, he appears stable. He is no longer collapsed, no longer lost, no longer drifting. He is functioning, capable, respected, and he gets things done. He meets his obligations. He knows how to regulate himself enough to survive the pressures of life. He knows how to hold himself together in public. He knows how to play the part that life now expects him to play. And yet, his life is still quietly shaped by one invisible question. Is this allowed? Not something asked out loud, not consciously framed as doubt, not dramatic enough to be noticed, but present nonetheless. Present before the hard conversation he knows he needs to have. Present before the boundary that would change the dynamic. Present before the risk that would cost approval. Present before the truth that would alter how he is seen. The question runs underneath his thoughts. It shapes timing. It shapes tone. It shapes posture. And it shapes choice. A man can look stable and still be living like this. He can look disciplined and still be waiting for approval. He can look like a leader and still be scanning the room before he moves. That scan is not confidence. It is not humility. And it is not wisdom. It is a survival habit that never got retired. This is the cage most men never see, because it does not look like prison bars. It looks like being reasonable. It looks like being measured. It looks like being mature. It looks like being a good man. Externally, nothing appears wrong. Internally, it feels like delay, hesitation, a low-level tension in the body, a subtle compression in the chest, a constant sense of holding something back, like standing at the edge of a jump, except you never actually jump. And power stalls here, not because the man lacks talent, not because he lacks intelligence, not because he lacks discipline, but because his nervous system is still asking the crowd for permission to be real. By this stage of life, most men have already shed the obvious addictions. They have survived chaos. They have outgrown destruction. They are no longer self-sabotaging in ways that are easy to point at. But permission remains. Permission from family expectations, cultural approval, relationship dynamics, moral systems they never consciously chose. Old authority figures still living rent-free in the nervous system. The man still checks the room before he acts, still scans reactions before committing, still softens his truth to remain acceptable, still edits his edge so he can stay good. Not because he is weak, because he's been conditioned that way. And this is why permission functions like an addiction, because it brings relief. Relief from being judged, relief from being misunderstood, relief from standing alone inside a decision, relief from the heat that comes when you stop performing. Men do not always numb with substances. Some numb with compliance. Some numb with over-explaining. Some numb with endless consideration. Some numb with being the reasonable one. Some numb with the stories they tell themselves. Things like, I'll do it when it feels safer. I'll do it when I am more ready. I'll do it when it makes sense to everyone. Permission is the final sedation. It keeps a man from the clean pain of truth. It keeps him from the responsibility that comes with choosing. And it keeps him from the next gate where structure replaces negotiation. Because once you stop asking permission, you cannot pretend you didn't know. You cannot outsource your life. You cannot hide behind consensus. You cannot say, they said it was fine. You are left with one thing: alignment. And alignment has no witnesses. Men believe they fear consequences. They do not. They fear standing alone inside their choice. They fear the moment when the old world does not clap, when there is no nod of agreement, when the relationship goes quiet, when the family system tightens, when someone starts treating them differently. Permission outsourcing protects a man from responsibility. If the world agrees, he can hide inside it. If it fails, he can point outward. But sovereignty removes witnesses. No applause, no guarantees, no validation, only alignment. And that is why this stage feels like a death rite. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just real. It is the death of the boy who needed to be liked to feel safe. The death of the man who negotiated his spine for belonging. The death of the part of you that tried to buy peace with explanation. Most men do not collapse here. They stall. They live in half choices. They live in maybes. They live in soon. They live in the space between truth and action. And the cost is not only time. The cost is self-trust. Because every time you wait for permission, you train your nervous system to doubt its own authority. Stopping permission seeking does not make a man reckless. It makes him anchored. True masculine authority does not need to explain itself repeatedly, does not justify its existence, does not beg to be understood, does not seek consensus. It moves cleanly, quietly, firmly. It creates reality instead of reacting to it. This is where men misinterpret authority. They think authority means dominance. They think it means harshness. They think it means emotional shutdown. But authority in a man's life is not status. It is integration made visible. It is a man who can hold truth without aggression. A man who can set boundaries without performance. A man who is accountable to his values. A man who no longer abandons himself to stay liked. So when he moves, it does not come with a speech. It does not come with justification. It does not come with the need to convince. It comes with structure. And structure removes negotiation. Not because he wants to control, but because he is no longer inviting old dynamics back in through explanations. A man who stops asking permission does not become louder. He becomes heavier. The body must be retrained here. Permission does not live in thought alone. It lives deep down in the nervous system, and it shows up as hesitation, over-explaining, delayed actions, waiting for the right time, asking questions you already know the answers to, and you can feel it. You are about to do the thing you have known you need to do. And your chest begins to tighten. Your breath begins to shorten. Your mind begins to start bargaining. Your tongue begins to soften the truth before it is spoken. That is not confusion. That is conditioning. Much of what men call overthinking is actually a nervous system seeking safety. So it looks for relief. Relief through delays. Relief through explanations. Relief through checking. Relief through being reasonable. But the moment a man stops asking permission, his nervous system enters a new register. Less noise, more gravity, more stillness, not confidence, decision density. The body stops rehearsing for approval and starts preparing for reality. And this can feel uncomfortable at first because you are removing a sedative, the drug of being liked, the drug of being understood, the drug of consensus. This is a detox, and detox has symptoms. Restlessness, doubt, the urge to explain, The urge to clarify, the urge to clear the air and hold it. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming regulated. When a man stops asking permission, reality responds. Not with applause, not with celebration, but with pressure. Some people leave. Some resist. Some test boundaries. Some try to pull him back into old shapes. This is not punishment. It is sorting. Reality reorganizes around men who act from inner law. And this phase exposes something most men would rather not see. Who was benefiting from your hesitation? There are people who preferred you when you were editable, easy to manage, when your yes came easily, when your truth arrived softened, when your edge could be negotiated down into comfort. So when you begin to change, it does not simply confuse them. It threatens the old equilibrium. And they test, naturally, often quietly, a shift in tone, a casual comment, a guilt trip, a withdrawal. And a man still conditioned to seek permission reads that pressure as proof that he did something wrong. So he reopens the door. He explains. He apologizes. He overcorrects. He tries to restore comfort. This is how men lose power without ever realizing it happened. They call it kindness. They call it consideration. They call it being the bigger person. But it is fear wearing good manners. A sovereign man lets the discomfort land where it belongs. Not as cruelty, as reality. The mature masculine is governed by inner law, not by mood, not by approval, not by borrowed morality. And inner law asks, does this align with who I'm becoming? Does this strengthen or dilute my spine? Does this move reality forward or keep me safe? Once inner law is installed, permission becomes irrelevant. A man no longer asks, is this okay? He asks, is this true? And notice what changes. It does not make you perfect. It does not remove consequence. It does not guarantee anyone stays. It simply ends the bargaining. Because a man without inner law is governed by the room. He is governed by reactions. He is governed by tone shifts. He is governed by the threat of being misunderstood. That is not leadership. That is negotiation. Inner law creates a different kind of peace. Not peace bought with approval. Peace built from structure. And when structure is real, it shows up as consistency, not intensity, not speeches, not declarations. Consistency. A man can be misunderstood and remain aligned. A man can be disliked and not rearrange himself. A man can feel the tremor in his chest and still choose truth. That is not hardness. That is his sacred spine. There is no ceremony for this stage, no initiation rite, no applause, no moment where anyone officially acknowledges what has changed. Just a man who quietly stops waiting, a man who stops explaining, one who stops softening, stops negotiating with his edge, and begins acting from a place that does not require agreement. This is not rebellion. It is responsibility without witnesses. And it will cost you something. Comfort, approval, access to people who only liked you when you were easy to steer. But what you get back is not hype. It is not a persona. It is internal. You stop resenting your own choices. You stop leaking energy into performance. You stop living as a man whose life is up for vote. And slowly, the right people meet you differently. Not because you demanded respect, because you stopped negotiating with weakness. Weakness inside of yourself and around you. This is the man who no longer asks permission, because his life is no longer up for vote.